So, 24 hours ago, we made this video here on the channel. It actually says 18 hours ago because you could tell I'm recording this video at 4 a.m. in the morning, but last time we talked about how the NHL needs to watch out because the Montreal Canadiens are coming and this first line of Slafkovsky, Suzuki, and Caulfield is awesome. Well, we're flipping the script today. Instead of saying the NHL needs to watch out for the Habs now need to watch out themselves. And the reason I'm saying that is because we have ourselves an upcoming game that will be taking place on January 15th that I think Canadiens fans should be paying attention to. Now, the Habs are playing later tonight. They've got the Sabres. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. here, which is why I'm making this video a little bit early. But this video, talking about this January 15th game, is highlighting a very particular Colorado Avalanche player that has gone out there and started to tear things up. And it's not a name that most of y'all would expect upon first glance. So, let's talk about the Avalanche for a little bit. They're first overall in the Central Division at the time of recording this audio, with 51 points in 38 games played. They don't have the top points percentage in the Central. That honor belongs to the Jets. And if you go over to the NHL in general, the Avalanche are tied with New York and Vancouver for second in the league. If you sort by points percentage, Colorado drops down there to fifth. All things considered, this has been a pretty good team. They've honestly got it all. Alexander Georgiev had become the first goalie this season to 20 wins. The defense, you could say, needs a little bit of fine-tuning, but the talent is all there. And then, of course, the forward core on Colorado has been so good. So much to the point that if you take a look at the recent game the Avalanche had, January 2nd against the New York Islanders, a 5-4 overtime victory, you had yourselves a bunch of these forwards going out there and putting their names on the score sheet multiple times. In particular, we're talking about this Valeri Nichushkin goal at the end of an expiring power play in the second period to bring the game within one. You had a really nice centering pass made out by Jonathan Drouin down to Samuel Girard, who then throws the cross crease to Nichushkin. There's the 3-2 goal for Colorado, and then just 4 minutes later, you had the same Jonathan Drouin tie things up at 3 after a really nice give-and-go feed from McKinnon and Rantanen. Jonathan Drouin had 2 points in this 5-4 victory, and you had the agent Alan Walsh go out there and tweet this: Colorado forward Jonathan Drouin is on fire. 10 points in his last 10 games. He's 1-on-1 tonight with 21 minutes and 38 seconds of time on ice. Here is his cross-seam pass for the helper just as the power play expired. Now this, actually, did I get the assists mixed up here? Did I say that Girard was the wrong guy? I think I did. Yeah, there you go. Cross-crease feed from Drouin out in front. My bad. But either way, Jonathan Drouin has been in a spot where if you take a look at the point production this season, you may say that 18 points in 36 games played is not the most impressive thing in the world. He's at literally half a point a game right now, with 40 points in 80 games as his projection. We had already talked about earlier in the season, Drouin getting scratched. Him and Tatar were healthy scratches, and they were not really in the best position possible. Now Tatar is in Seattle. He got moved over there. So Drouin is the one remaining Canadian from that video, not the remaining Canadian that's still on the Avalanche because you still have Arturi Lehkonen, who is a member of that roster. But either way, Jonathan Drouin legitimately has 10 points in his last 10 games, and if you go over to his game log, this is where things get very interesting. Let's move everything over once more just to make it align here. Drouin had 2 points in the Islanders' victory. He had a point against the St. Louis Blues, a goal against the Coyotes, and then a 5-game point streak from the 13th to the 21st of December. The interesting thing to note about this is that recently, Drouin has been put in a pretty good position to succeed in terms of minutes. Last game, he had 21:38. The game before that, 22:52. Sure, there were some games here where he had fewer than 18 minutes. He had a 15-minute game thrown in there, but he still had an assist against the Ottawa Senators. And then you had the 25-minute game against the Winnipeg Jets about a month ago, plus the 21-minute showcase against the Anaheim Ducks, wherein he got 2 assists. Part of this is because if you go over to the Colorado Avalanche and their lines, Jonathan Drouin has been placed on the first line alongside of Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen. Two of the top scoring forwards in the entire NHL are on the same line as Jonathan Drouin this season. I don't know about you, but McKinnon and Rantanen seems to me like a pretty big upgrade over Nick Suzuki and Josh Anderson. Just saying. No disrespect, of course, to the Montreal Canadiens and the guys that they have. We acknowledge that the Colorado Avalanche, they're in a much different position than the Montreal Canadiens are, which is why the Habs are down here in the Atlantic Division and the Avalanche are up here in the Central. But talk about a change of scenery, eh? And talk about a change of scenery that actually works. Jonathan Drouin has gone out there with a point-per-game production over the past month's worth of play, pretty much. He's being put in a position to succeed. He's on the top line in Colorado. He's being played 20 minutes a night. And this is a player who has never really exhibited that kind of, let's just say, love in the lineup for years now. Even if we go back to the 29-point season that Drouin had last year in 58 Montreal Canadiens games, let's go back over there and see. The guy was averaging 15 minutes of time on ice per night. He was not necessarily playing on the best lines possible. 16 minutes averaged in the month of March. He then had the 15 minutes averaged in February, 12 minutes averaged for the Canadiens in January of last year. So 1 year ago, Drouin was averaging 12 minutes of time on ice per game with some 10-minute games thrown in there. The Montreal Canadiens and Marty St. Louis were not really using Drouin in the way that the Colorado Avalanche are using him now. And this is a pattern that you could pretty much trace for most of Drouin's tenure as a Hab. Let's go back to 2020-2021, for example. Just go back to this half a point a game year where Jonathan Drouin was on the Montreal Canadiens, and you could see that he was averaging about 15, 17 minutes of time on ice per game in that same stint. He has been mostly a replacement level forward amongst the rotating cast of top six players for the Canadiens the past few years. It's only really now where, admittedly, he's actually playing with some better players and he's given a lot more ice time. Now he's being a point per game guy. Now he is showcasing that there is a good amount of talent, skill, speed, and playmaking ability. Again, it's not like any of these were not present in Drouin's time as a Canadian. It's just, this is the biggest and best opportunity Drouin has ever had in the NHL, and he's making good use of it. Let's go back over to that 2019 season where Drouin had his career high, 53 points, 81 games played with the Montreal Canadiens, and see just what things were like back then. Drouin in this season was still averaging about 15 minutes of time on ice per game, 16, 17 minutes even in earlier stages, but this ended up being the best year Drouin ever had. And if you go over to the Canadiens in this season, you'll see some older names. You had the Tatars, the Domis out there, Philippe Deneau, Brendan Gallagher still going out there and producing pretty big numbers. It's honestly kind of wild to think that this season was 5 years ago, excuse me. It feels like yesterday that Max Domi was a 70-point player on the Montreal Canadiens, but things change, I guess. But still, the point remains, Jonathan Drouin playing with this cast of rotating forwards. I'll go out there and say on a limb, Mikko Rantanen and Nathan MacKinnon are much better now than Thomas Tatar or Max Domi or Gallagher or Deneau were in this time frame. Drouin is playing with the best players he's ever played with, and he's finally starting to showcase some of that value on what is going to be one of the best contracts in the league if Drouin continues producing at a point-per-game metric. The guy's making $825,000 for just this season. So talk about a rental, talk about a one-year prove-it contract going right. This is a guy who, if he finishes off the season with the 40 points in 80 games played that he's projected to finishing off with, or let's say he gets a little bit more than that because he continues playing at a point-per-game pace, he finishes off the year with, let's say, 45 to 50 points. How much does that guy get next year in the offseason? He had 29 points in 58 games played last year with the Canadiens before becoming a free agent and then signing with Colorado. If he actually doubles his production, then who really knows? There were also extenuating circumstances with Drouin. There were a lot of mental issues. There were very well-known injury issues, too, that kept him out of the lineup. He didn't play for the Canadiens when they went to the finals. So where is this situation going to go in the future? And hey, let's say Drouin is okay with it. Let's say he says, screw it, screw the money, screw the free agency. I'm staying in Colorado. I'm signing a cheap deal. I'm sticking around with MacKinnon and Rantanen. If he goes down that route, then the Colorado Avalanche could really be a force to be reckoned with this brand new, shiny toy that has paired up so nicely with Nathan MacKinnon. So Habs fans, I'm going out there and saying look out, because on the 15th, the Canadiens have a game against a demon of the past. Some guy who's gone out there and revitalized his career, and his name is Jonathan Drouin. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Drouin and the way that he's played so far this season. What are your thoughts on the way he's progressed in the past month's worth of play, and the ice time too? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.